Good evening, everyone. My name is Alexia E.M., and I am the Administrative Assistant of Dance NYC. My pronouns are she, her, and I identify as a non-disabled queer Black woman. I am currently seated on the land of the Lenape people. I am light-skinned with light brown braids, and I have a Black shirt on against a burgundy wall with a little baby plant behind me. First, thank you for joining us for this digital experience and for being adaptable in these challenging times. As we are at the mercy of technology, we want to remind you that there may be delays, sound issues, and changing circumstances that may occur during our time together. We invite you to extend grace and patience to each other as we manage this virtual landscape. Second, ASL interpreter Sarah Ann and Brandon Kazin Maddox from LC Interpreting Services, as well as closed captioning services provided by Kara Dugas of the Viscardi Center, will be available throughout the entire event. At times, due to Zoom to Facebook streaming difficulties, the closed captioning service does not stream as accurately as we'd like to, and therefore live transcription will be available via Dance NYC's stream to text link, which is now pinned in the comment section. Third, feel free to post in the comment section on Facebook with questions or comments you may have for the speakers. We will be gathering them throughout and during the conversation. We will present the most relevant questions that time allow. Fourth, in the case that we need to end this session due to disruption, have no fear. You will hear us say abort 3 times and end the session, and we'll resume within 5 minutes right here on this Facebook Live. Lastly, we hope you help us to amplify these conversations. Hit the share arrow to share this live directly to your page, repost, tag us, and share your takeaways on Twitter. Adding us at DanceNYC, on Instagram at dance.nyc, on Facebook, dance/NYC, using the hashtag artists are necessary workers or hashtag DanceNYC Live. As we continue to host these conversations, this is our 7th, we are learning how to create dialogue spaces that reflect both our values as a team and organization. And the intention of this series is to dive deeper and hold space for the experiences of dance workers within our community. We're committed to hosting these conversations in as wide a format as possible by, for example, using Facebook rather than only Zoom registration for participants. However, as these conversations continue to move through highly public spaces, we have felt it is important to articulate a series of community guidelines by which we hope to hold this space and invite our participants to honor them as we share space together. These guidelines are a living commitment and may grow and or change to reflect our learning as a staff, organization, and in relationship to you, its participants, and the beneficiaries. If you have any suggestions, additions, and or feedback for these guidelines or for any part of the programming, we invite you to share them via our post-event survey or via email at info@dance.nyc. We ask that folks participating and or benefiting from today's event via comment on Facebook follow these. 1, upon participating in this event as a viewer or commenter, you are entering a virtual space of learning, reflection, respect, and accountability that is based on Dance NYC's values of justice, equity, and inclusion. 2, this means that we agree to share our opinions, challenge perspectives, and engage or debate respectfully, and acknowledge and course correct if harm is caused. We honor everyone's personhood and humanity, and we do not tolerate speech that is disparaging, abusive, violent, or that is intended to defame someone's character publicly. If anyone acts in violation of these guidelines, they will either be warned and asked to course correct or removed depending on the severity of the action. We thank you for your collective agreement to these guidelines to ensure that our space remains generative for and respectful to our community. And now we'll begin Dance in Community, Arts as Necessary Workers Facebook Live Conversation Series. As a way of deepening our work and learning in racial justice, we regularly practice land acknowledgements at meetings and public convenings to recognize our country's violent history and its legacy in the space we occupy. This practice is currently under development with the guidance of Indigenous dance artist and activist Emily Johnson to ensure that we embody this allyship. This includes taking actionable steps towards reparations in this initial instance by nurturing relationships with local Indigenous and First Nations artists and organizations, and making pathways for Lenape artists and leaders to return to Lenape Hoking today. I would like to acknowledge that the city of New York is on stolen land. More specifically, Lenape Hoking, the unceded homeland of the Lenape people, who are also recognized federally as a Delaware Nation of Oklahoma and Adarko, Oklahoma, Delaware Tribe of Indians, Bartlesville, Oklahoma, Stockbridge, Muncie Community, Bowler, Wisconsin, and in Canada, Muncie, Delaware Nation, Moravian of the Thames First Nation, Delaware of Six Nations. The Lenape people are the original inhabitants and caretakers of this land and gave Manhattan Island its name, Mannahatta, meaning hilly island or place where we go to gather the wood for the bows. Additionally, as we are gathered digitally and inspired by Adrian Wong of Spiderweb Show in what is currently called Canada, I invite us to consider the legacy of colonialization embedded with the technology, structures, and ways of thinking we use every day. Excuse the phone ringing. We're using equipment and high-speed internet not available in many rural Indigenous communities that are at times leaving significant carbon footprints, contributing to climate change that disproportionately impacts Indigenous communities worldwide. We acknowledge that these changing inequities are shared responsibility, as are our roles in reconciliation, decolonization, and allyship. We recognize that as an organization based at NYC, we have benefited and continue to benefit from the systemic displacement and subsequent erasure of Lenape people and governance on their land. Please join me in taking a moment to recognize and reflect on the centuries of violence, displacement, forced migration, and settlement here, as well as the centuries of resilience and leadership of all Indigenous and First Nations people on the Turtle Island that have led to our presence and livelihoods in New York City today. Continuing our practice of recognition, we would like to name openly the legacies of the African slave trade, migration and immigration patterns, the disability rights and disability justice movements, and LGBTQ+ fight for justice. These areas and tactics of oppression, through which white supremacy and settler colonialism have enacted and sustained its power over time, are not the only areas, but rather the main focuses of Dance NYC's ongoing historical acknowledgement, practice, and justice, equity, and inclusion strategy. We would like to also take a moment of silence in remembrance of the victims of COVID-19 around the world and honor the unseen labor of the many people that continue to ensure the safety and well-being of our community in these trying times, including but not limited to the frontline workers. Lastly, and certainly not least, we also acknowledge and mourn Raya Milton, Dominique Remy Felds, Justin Howell, Sean Monterosa, Jamel Floyd, Nina Pop, Tony McDade, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Rashard Brooks, David McAtee, and all Black people whose lives have been taken by the actions of white people, institutions, and systems, and the many accomplices, witnesses, and beneficiaries of white supremacy who have actively participated in or stood by and observed in silence. Over the past few weeks, we have also witnessed as a nation and city the palpable impacts that systemic racism has on the lives of Black and Indigenous people, peoples of color, immigrants, disabled, and immunosuppressed people, LGBTQ+ people, and people living in low-income communities and poverty impacted by COVID-19. White supremacy continuously manifests itself in violence at the hands of law enforcement and in interpersonal interactions, our government's response to COVID-19, and our cultural institutions. Let us take a final moment of silence. Thank you. For those of you who are new to the organization, Dance NYC delivers 5 core services for the field: advocacy, action-oriented research, leadership training and convening, technological resources through our website, and grant making, all to empower dance makers and cultural workers, build audiences, and strengthen the collective voice for the art form. Dance NYC works in alliance with the national organization Dance USA to drive local national synergies in dance service delivery. You can learn more about our programs at our website, dance.nyc. On May 14th, Dance NYC launched a campaign declaring loudly that artists are necessary workers. This campaign, which will run through early August, demands the acknowledgement, representation, and integration of dance and art workers in the decision-making, and that will envision our future post-pandemic. Artists serve New York City at every level, leading tourism, strengthening education, fueling the economy, and ensuring our health, wellness, and imaginations. So far, Dance NYC has released the Artists Are Necessary Workers campaign video featuring members of our dance community, displaying our strength and power in numbers, written a letter, and are now working with the Mayor's Office of New York City to insist on dance having a seat at the table. And lastly, we have curated this series of public conversations with arts workers to discuss challenges, offer considerations, and envision our way forward as a field. Our conversation today will focus on dance workers that are leading activist movements and caring for our communities through this time. I will turn it over to Candace, Thompson, Zachary to lead us in our discussion. Thank you.
Thanks, Alexia.
Thank you.
So hello, everybody. My name is Candace Thompson Zachary. I'm the manager of Justice, Equity, and Inclusion Initiatives at Dance NYC. My pronouns are she, her, and I am a non-disabled Black woman of Caribbean heritage. I am currently wearing a pink shirt. I'm brown skinned. I have on dark lipstick, and I'm wearing a multicolored head wrap. And my background is a red wall with books and shelves. And I'm calling in today from the land of the Lenape and Canarsie people, also known as Brooklyn, New York. So thank you for joining us yet again. As Alexia said, this is our 7th week of public conversations on Facebook. I've heard from many of you that this like Tuesday marker of conversations with the dance community has been meaningful. So we're happy to provide that space for us to meet and gather and talk and discuss. Last week, we talked with a few presenters and with someone from the union talking about the future of performance venues. And it seemed that people obviously have a lot of conversations about that. And then this week, we're focusing more directly on dance workers and on their work in community, especially in relation to the COVID pandemic, to ongoing racial violence, and to this reckoning that the field is facing now in terms of its demands for racial equity and all sorts of equity. And of course, this ties in with our theme of artists are necessary workers. So we're looking at these folks that we're talking to today to show the kinds of work that they're doing, and the fact that the work that they're doing is now being seen, I think, in a different light by a lot of people, especially folks that are outside of the dance world, to understand how necessary and how needed the tools that dance brings to every space that it comes to. So that's where we're going with today's conversation, especially focused on providing care and mutual aid and support in our communities, as well as organizing for change. So we're going to hear today from Brinda Guha, who many of you know, who works here at Dance NYC as our producer, but is the curator of Wise Fruit NYC. We're gonna hear from Brittany Williams, an organizer and dance artist. Hi, Brinda. We're gonna hear from Alicia Bauman-Morales, who works, is an artist of her own right and works with Acre, artists co-creating real equity. And last but not least, Naomi Goldberg-Haas, the founding artistic director of Dances for a Variable Population. So all of these folks work in different areas, but are working deeply in the communities that they serve. And I'm just excited to be in conversation with them today. So I'll have, if everyone can just go around and introduce yourself, just like a basic introduction, right, with your pronouns and where you are and your description, and then we'll kind of like dive into the meaty part of the conversation. So I'll turn it over to Brittany first.
Hi everyone, my name is Brittany Williams. My pronouns are she, her. I am calling in from Brooklyn, New York, Lenape land. I also want to pay homage to my own indigenous lineage, which is Creek and Seminole from Florida and Georgia. And I will pass it to Alicia.
You want to give your visual description, Brittany?
Yes, I have on a blue dress, white wall, long locks, and I pass it to Alicia.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for gathering in this digital space that we're sharing. I'm happy to be here with you. My name's Alicia Bauman-Morales. I am a light-skinned Puerto Rican woman. I'm queer, I'm non-disabled. I have a kind of genderqueer appearance. I'm in a sleeveless blue-gray shirt, and I have a backwards camel Kango hat on. I'm in front of a teal and white wall. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm currently on Lenape Canarsie land, which is also known as Flatbush, Brooklyn. And I will pass it to Brinda.
Hi, everybody. We meet again. My name is Brinda Guha. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm a non-disabled, queer, South Asian woman. I'm on the land of the Lenape people today in Manhattan. And I'm wearing a brown and white shirt with silver jewelry, oversized glasses. The sun is coming in, and I'm against a wall with dream catchers. And I pass it to Naomi.
We can't hear you, Naomi.
Okay, so now it's good.
We got you.
Thank you for having me. Here, I'm Naomi Goldberg-Haas, and my pronouns are she and her, and I live on the indigenous land of Lenape. I'm a non-disabled woman in her late 50s. I'm wearing a long pleat blue shirt, and I'm behind a big bookcase of shells.
Sweet. Thank you, everyone. So I think a good place to start is sort of with your personal stories, your personal experiences. So perhaps just give us an idea of what the past few months have been like for you personally, and probably in the immediate community in which you are most in contact with.
I can go first. So the last few months have been interesting. I think we are facing two pandemics, and so one was ongoing and one was newer. And I think what we were all trying to do as an artistic community was to figure out what our place in this moment was and what would have the greatest net effect, you know? So I think these last few months have been really, really busy, but it was kind of energizing in a way to be able to kind of organize, what we wanted to do and what we wanted to say and what reckoning we wanted to do together and how we were going to use our abilities to get people together to do that reckoning together, right? And so just strategizing that has been really interesting. And I work with, mostly the commercial dance industry, but dancers all over New York and the tri-state area in my event Wise Fruit. And it was about, I felt that the community's need was to begin begin the work of anti-racism and begin the work of kind of dealing with this moment and being active participants in this dialogue. And so Wise Fruit kind of turned in from a live showcase, which we now, for better or worse, we can't be live together and gather together physically. And so it turned from that into kind of like a beginner toolbox for anti-racist resources. And so this moment has been energizing in terms of strategizing ways to get more people involved who might have not otherwise been involved, right? But then also doing our own work to kind of figure out what it is that we're even saying and we're even gathering for, right? So I think the two are happening simultaneously. Yeah.
Cool. That's fair to say. Anybody else want to share about their experiences?
These past few months have been disturbing and unrelenting, and it's constant need for understanding and finding access to communication, which has been primary. We have many older adults who do not have the understanding. Is too hard to actually access the computer and use technology, and we had to really work very hard. And also there are many people who don't have actually access to, they can't have computers, they don't have internet service. So how to reach them was a big problem. So we had to develop new ways of working.
Yeah. So let me backtrack. Perhaps we should talk a bit about the organizations we work with and the kind of work we do. I mean, I kind of wanted us to talk about ourselves individually, but we already started talking about our work. Totally fine. I get it. So Naomi, probably tell us about the work that you do and the organization that you lead, and then probably Brinda, just go back, and then we'll go to Brittany and Alicia. Does that work?
Okay. Right. I run the organization called Dances for a Variable Population, which primarily serves older adults. So we work with many older adults, and older adults are highly vulnerable to COVID-19, and they were trapped in their apartments and they lack outlets for physical exercise. I should talk slower, I guess. You're right, Ken?
Yes.
They lack outlets for physical exercise. And before this pandemic, many older adults felt loneliness was a huge issue. It was affecting 60 to 80% of the population affected by loneliness. But when you talk about older adults, it isn't just a social problem, it's a health risk. It decreases lifespan by 26%. We know this can be a life or death issue for seniors not to have ways to communicate with each other. So that was a big problem that we started with. And we moved very rapidly during this pandemic to remote programs, but also for seniors who don't have access to use telephone classes. We have 700 students every week on the telephone or on the Zoom. It's amazing. It's amazing. So I think, and they've told us how important it is for them to be connected. It could be connected, and it could be connected over the telephone, or it just speaks to the importance of dance and the community.
So your organization is based on providing these kinds of experiences.
Yes, providing services, making sure that they have the services, and they tell us that they want the services, and it's so important to them.
Thank you, Naomi. Let me turn it over to Brinda to just talk a bit about Wise Fruit and maybe some of the other work that you do.
Yeah, sure. I'm the curator of Wise Fruit NYC, which was established in 2017, March. It is a seasonal live arts showcase dedicated to the feminine divine. We have raised money for Planned Parenthood and Sue Rock Originals Everyone. And at the end of every installment, we raise money to a women's led organization. And it is a live arts showcase that kind of merges arts and activism in kind of the same space in a nightlife setting, and bringing important issues to the forefront while commenting on the current times through live arts and energy and good music. So we've had 10 iterations, the last one which has been virtual, and we're continuing to meet in other ways in the community.
Thanks, Brinda. All right, I'm gonna turn it over to Brittany. So I guess we're answering two questions now, right? One is, tell us a bit about yourself and your work or the organizations you're affiliated with, and then your experience over the past few months.
Yes. Hey y'all, my name is Brittany Williams. I'm from Miami, Florida. One thing about myself is I have 15 nieces and nephews, and I'm accountable to them, and I'm also accountable to my community back in Florida City, Florida, Exit 1. But also, some of the work that I'm doing, I like to use choreographic tools to support the work that I'm doing as an artist, as an organizer in the streets of New York and across the country. So some of the work that I've been doing, many folks, hopefully I heard about Get This War Dance, hashtag Get This War Dance. I am one of the collaborators that hit everybody up, was like, hey y'all, we need to get this war dance and we need to start this organizing right now, which is a Black collective speaking specifically to Black artists about the importance of our embodied art and traditions. And then also Woodshed Dance. Woodshed Dance, when COVID happened, what ended up happening was and also as a community agreement, Get This War Dance, the collaborators are Heather Himes, Jennifer Harge, Alexis Renee, Orlando Hunter, and Ricardo Valentine. So that's our accountability of naming who's in the space and who's doing the work. And then Woodshed is Michelle Murray and Melissa Kabla. We have an online platform. When COVID hit, we basically started organizing to provide our friends in Miami and across the country with a platform so that they can continue to teach and make money. It's not, make a lot of money, but enough to sustain yourself. And then the third thing is around We Keep Us Safe, which is an abolitionist network. We didn't quarantine when everything hit. I understand that we've been in a pandemic for 400 years when we're talking about white supremacy, racism, and all the other phobias and isms that exist in the world. So when we started doing the mutual aid work, we started going to NYCHA facilities. We started helping bail people out of jail and make sure they have mutual aid coming home, and then also houseless people, and then also supporting real grassroots groups who do not necessarily get funding from nonprofits, making sure they have PPE and the basic things that they need. I think that's about it. Yeah.
Yes. Wow. Yes. Thank you, Brittany, and thank you for all the work that you do for all of us. Alicia, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Wow, I'm so excited to be in this conversation with all y'all. And thank you for your work. So I'm gonna answer this question first through the lens of the creative work I've been doing. When Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico, I started a practice around storm medicine. And the question I was asking was, what are the medicinal properties of this moment of destruction and trauma? What are the opportunities and possibilities that are embedded in it? A lot of traditions know this. A lot of traditions know this particular medicine. So I started asking that question when this storm that we're now in the middle of hit. That's kind of the framework that I started looking at it through. So what have the last couple months been like? They've been devastating. They've been traumatic. They've been charged with possibility and exciting energy. They've been, I've had to slow down. There've been interruptions over and over again that have kind of stopped the impulse to adrenaline organize and keep on, and just keep on landing me back in my body. And so that has been a theme as well. They've also, as probably for most of us, they have interrupted my art practice in that I'm not in the studio. And so what that's looked like is dancing outside in the streets, on street corners, which has been this interesting return to connecting with place and to a less highbrow version of my practice. That's actually where I started. I started dancing outside. So it's been this interesting return and interruption and upset. So artistically, that's what I'm up to right now, is this latest version of storm medicine. The other thing, as Brinda, I think you mentioned, there's this epidemic, this pandemic that's happening. And police have been killing Black people. Police have been killing Latino people. Like, this is not new. We know that this is not new, but there's some perfect storm right now combined with this persistent organizing over years and years and years, combined with people being stuck at home, combined with no sports on TV, whatever it is, that there's this moment of national reckoning. So that to me feels like storm medicine. That's a tipping point, a crossroads, a doorway moment. So creatively reckoning with those things and doing it outside, because that's what there is. I'm an organizer with ACRE. ACRE as in 40 acres and a mule, that word, and it stands for Artists Co-Creating Real Equity. ACRE is a coalition of artists, and we are based on the principles of the People's Institute for Survival and Beyond, which, if you don't know them, they're an incredible organization. Their principles have been really grounding for me in all of my practice. And so at ACRE, we meet every month on the third Saturday of the month. We always caucus. So we're a multiracial coalition. We always caucus, white people caucus, people of color caucus. And just briefly, we've done a lot of different things over the years. Lately, a lot of people have been talking about ACRE as a sort of watering hole. We're all super active in other areas, and many of us come to ACRE to reground, to fill our cups, to remember why we're doing what we're doing and our principles, to troubleshoot, to have each other's backs in tangible ways. So that's ACRE. ACRE is open to any person of color who identifies as an artist, whether or not you've been to the People's Institute training. And it's open to white folks who identify as artists, and we define artists broadly, once you have been to the People's Institute training. So that's ACRE. And last thing I want to say is that I teach middle school dance, and I teach amazingly talented, brilliant, sometimes pain in the ass group of young people. And that work has just been incredible and incredibly difficult, but also incredibly fulfilling during this pandemic. I teach all Black, Latinx, or Black and Latinx kids, which is not quite representative of the school they're at. So that's Susan Dance. And figuring out how to continue to just make space for their brilliance and their expertise and their innocence and their knowledge and their creativity and their genius in an institution and environment that doesn't always, is incredibly close to my heart and something that I'm continuing into summer.
Thank you, Alicia, and thanks everybody for sharing, about your work. And I think, Alicia, you kind of already answered this, but basically, where is your artistic practice inside of this kind of organizing work or community work that you do? Like, where do you see the kind of theories or concepts or conjuring that you do maybe in your artistic work? Where do you see that, or how does it manifest in the work that you're organizing right now?
Are you okay?
Oh,
Go,
okay.
Brittany.
So, creativity is supposed to be a birthright. And creativity and artistry is something that is in the soul of Black people, and everything that we do has an element of that because of our relationship to violence and survival in a real way when we're thinking about oppression. We're thinking about police brutality and us trying to survive in this moment and rest in this moment and be okay in this moment. And so I think thinking about creativity and artistry and the way that we show up on a spectrum that some days we access it, some days we don't, but we continue to engage with it as artists, as people, as communities, right? And so being on the grounds at protests, being on the grounds, we're always maneuvering and we're always improving And so like as an artist, like I continue to be on a quest to just think as movement. It would not be a rebellion or an uprising without movement itself. So just thinking about creativity on that basic level and our ability to continue to move, that is creativity, and can nobody take that away from us. So artistically, in my process around artistry or creating, I'm always nurturing. And sometimes I'm like, when do I get to rest? But then I have those moments when it's time for me to have those moments. And so like this, like hierarchy around within the art world, or with how we relate to creativity and who has access and who gets what, I think continues to cut, disrupt our process, um, in reaching our full potential around the importance of creativity and artistry, and not just dance, but every single thing that we do.
Yeah. So yeah, basically that it shouldn't even be a question, right? Like you should be showing up as your full artistic creative self everywhere you go. Yeah. Yeah. But that sadly, a lot of us need to be reminded. And most times it's artists who are the ones doing that reminding, like doing that insistence on people showing up as their full selves. Yeah.
The net that seems to work is the artist saving the artist, and so, which seems super weird to me. I actually, I'm so inspired by that, Brittany, because I feel so stuck, because I'm such a victim of capitalism that I associate choreography, specifically choreography, because of the type of dance that I do. I'm an North Indian classical Kathak dancer. And for me, the type of work that I always have to do in order to present it is to package it, right? You want to package it so that people understand what you're doing, so that you qualify for that cute grant, so that you get the thing and and the other thing, and people are like wowed by the eclectic whatever. And you're sitting there and you're trying to package this thing that's just in you, and from doing that for years and years and years, I'm tired. Like these last few months, I'm not dancing a lot, and I'm not proud of that. It's just, I have to go back and I have to figure out what I'm missing, because clearly what I was doing was not my most authentic self for at least a long time, because I was always had that lens on of delivering art instead of just practicing it. I'm not saying that I never feel dance when I dance. I don't think I would make it, and like doing this, I don't think I would be an artist or proudly call myself an artist if that wasn't the case. But what it often feels like when we're reflecting on service and we're reflecting on art is how are people going to understand what I'm trying to say? And I think that has kind of kidnapped me for so long, like this idea of needing to be so clear that I wasn't clear at all, and I feel sad, because I was thinking that I would jump on this productivity creative train when I was stuck at home, and we're fighting for racial justice, and we're trying to find our place in this 400-year pandemic, but I don't feel like moving, and I'm trying to figure out what that is, because it's new, it's very, very new for me. I feel stuck. And I think it's a lot of the work that we have to do to reckon with ourselves, because trying to figure out why we dance in the first place. And it's crazy that I'm saying that, but that's my truth, It's like I lose touch with it sometimes because of how we function in this industry in terms of getting our work seen and, supported. So.
Yeah. So basically that disruption that Brittany alluded to is what you're actually feeling. that break between what your creative self is and what your work as an organizer is, or your work as a human in the world is. Yeah. Naomi, Alicia?
I'm just feeling y'all, and I appreciate how real you both how real you both kept it, and how much you got to this kernel of what we're up against. I particularly feel that tension between do I try to appeal to money that's coming from white institutions, and it's coming from institutions embedded in capitalism and all of that? Do I have a side hustle and try to fund my own stuff? You know, as an educator, am I out there in the open about what I'm really doing with these young folks, or do I kind of shapeshift ninja it? So I feel like these are just really big questions, and I appreciate y'all for bringing them up.
Thank you.
I feel I'm just confronting all the time the inequities that are in our culture, all the time. It's very disturbing to me that some people can't have. You're young. You know, I'm old. I'm not as old as the people I work with, but you know, all you people are very young. This is really. It's very hard for people to actually understand how to work the system, and then on top of it, actually be able to have the access to its system.
Yeah.
And I, for myself personally, in my dancing, I'm always hurting because I'm trying to teach on Zoom, and I'm having the same frustrations with getting technology to work myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not.
Do you want to talk a little bit about, I guess, the offering that you, like the classes that you've created, and like what the artistic input is with those in the classes that you offer to your community?
Yeah. Yes. So it's really incredible how important just connecting with someone else and learning to connect your own body is over the telephone. You can actually teach a dance class over the telephone. That's amazing to me, that people feel so connected to experiencing that sense of what it means to be a dancer. We all know, we take it for granted, but in many of the people that we work with, we have to actually explain the somatic understanding that we bring. Anyway.
Thank you for that, Naomi. Yeah,
we take it for granted. We forget how special we are. And how much we have to offer. I'm reminded constantly to the older adults tell me it's new thoughts, to take time to just kind of breathe in the body and feel centered. What does it mean we take for granted what the sense of center means?
Yeah.
So it brings us back to.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, I think, and the kind of thread that's connecting you folks here is this reminder to be in your body, to see yourself as a creative being, to see yourself as a feeling, moving entity.
There's something very deep to offer. It's something very deep. We all have something very deep to offer.
Yes, yes. So yeah, this reminder that basically that the work that you're doing is to kind of hold that reminder for the communities that you're in. So I'll pause here to do some shout outs. We have a lot of people watching on Facebook. Tara Webb, Donna, Maria Bauman-Morales, Kayla Hamilton, Maura Donahue, Michelle Fletcher, I'm slowing down, Jennifer Garlando, Elaine Wright, Hila Cordova, Ari Figuera, Lombris Lalis, Donna Costello, and Acre PSAB is here representing. So shout out to them. We have a few questions or comments. I'll actually just read them out. It feels like a good time. From Michelle Flesher, she says, I appreciate the naming of adrenaline reactionary response. There is urgency, and at the same time, sustainability and endurance is needed. So I think we kind of resonated with that. Tara asks, as artists, how do you feel about the destruction that is happening, and how does that potentially relate to your processes? I feel like, Alicia, you talked about that a little bit, but maybe we can talk a little bit more about it if we want. And then Acre PSAB asks, can you all talk a bit more about adrenaline-based organizing, drinking from the well or watering hole, sustained organizing and protests? what place do each of these have for you all and cultural organizing? Wow, that's a really great question, Ikar. Huh. Do we want to pivot to talk about that? We can. Yeah, I think we can. So I guess like which sort of ties into something that I wanted to ask as well, which is, I guess, what motivates your work? What are the values that underpin your work, right? And in terms of the question that they're asking, like, what is the reactionary response that you've put out, or what is the like initial adrenaline-based work that you may have done, but then what is also like the kind of restorative work that you do to replenish, to rejuvenate, and to sustain your organizing and protest work. So that was a whole lot. I'll just like pause in silence for a bit so that people gather themselves, and then I think you can respond to anything that I've said.
I think, so two things are happening for me. One is, the adrenaline-based organizing came from a need of making sure that a lot of young dancers did not have an excuse to not participate in this moment. So, dance is one of those things, especially in the commercial arts, dance is one of those things that are like, the hustle's real. And so, but we don't know who made us do the hustle. We don't know who, like, so we're sitting there and we're like fighting for scraps, but we're not really sure why we're running so fast. And so I needed my network, the people that love Wise Fruit, the people who like to dedicate their work to the feminine divine, to womanhood, to female identified bodies, to kind of just slow down and go, there is a place in this activism work for everyone, and there's a place, and it's an ecosystem, and it's all really connected by these really beautiful vines, and, like the beginner tools then kind of lead you into this work, then that kind of leads you into this work, and then you put your body on the line, and then it's not linear. It's like happening, and it's all connected, and we just kind of have to find our place in that work. And I wanted Wise Fruit to be a place, a gathering place of resources, so that there was no excuse to not start the journey. Mm-hmm. Like it needed to be this thing where like, okay, you can't afford that course right now. You're gonna put money into your savings to afford that course. And in the meantime, you're gonna watch these 15 videos that are part of our culture that you should have watched in school. Like this was like a place where people really felt this calling to be a part of anti-racism, and they didn't know, for whatever reason and without judgment, but they didn't know how to start. And I didn't want to waste time shaming them for not knowing where to start. I just wanted to provide a starting point, and then maybe we can have a conversation if the work is still not getting done. That's one side, but then the other side of it was creative practice. I mean, I recently am dealing with this situation where it's not even a situation, it's kind of like a moment to consider that my work in classical Indian dance is based on a total hierarchical structure of caste and religion, that literally the way that I move is based in symbolism and knowledge of casteism and hierarchy. And so you're sitting there with your vocab of movement knowledge and you're trying to dismantle, you're trying to dismantle all these things. You're trying to find out who you are, and the way that you move is in this language. And so, so that has been really, really pivotal for me as a shift into figuring out what my language is going to be when I guide people to start doing work. You know what I mean?
It's no surprise that you're not moving.
What's
It's no
that?
surprise it's no surprise that you told us that you weren't moving. It's no surprise.
Yeah, because I feel crazy and I feel guilty, and I love my culture and I love my art, but I have to reclaim it. And I think that takes a couple steps. And I thought that we can just go to that place of resolution. Like
A lot of thinking.
I was
thinking.
I was guilty of just like jumping there and being in this place of service. And recently I've had to stop and go, you can continue to be of service, but you have to reckon with what's happening inside of you, you know? And that's probably what stopped my body from working. My mind is like, let's go, you know, but my body.
Definitely. It makes so much sense. It makes so much sense. We talk.
I think, so in other words, you wanted to kind of, for want of a better word, capitalize on the moment to get more people into this like organizing for change and into this anti-racist awakening by doing that immediate action. So that was like your adrenaline-based response. But then this other like slower train that's going in terms of your own like decolonizing. For one, that's basically what it is. Your own decolonizing for your own like artistic practice and your own self and yourself within your community.
Right, and you want your art to kind of drive your organizing. As artists, that's the lens with which we move through the world. So we're trying to find this like beautiful path, this map that tells us what to do from creativity to action, but it's not working that way. In one way, I'm really pushed to get people to start their journey, and in another way, I'm pulling myself all the way back going, okay, you know, let's reckon with this moment, right? Because we have people like me have brown skin, and we, you know, conveniently slap on POC when it serves us, but we're not like ready to actually deal with what that means, right? Because, you know, so there's so much to work on while trying to maintain an artistic practice and while trying to organize, you know?
Yeah. Thanks, Brinda. Thanks for sharing that. Other folks want to respond? Brittany?
Yeah, so this question brings up a lot for me. I actually, I perform still, but I haven't really performed or like produced like a Bika dance, you know, in years, because I realized I needed different experiences that were most likely rooted in what the vision of the world that I want to see outside of what I've been conditioned to learn through state-sanctioned violence and living in one of the poorest communities in the United States. And how militarized community in the United States. So the Ferguson gave me a language. Ferguson Uprising gave me a language to talk about my experiences since I was 8 years old, right? And so that's one. But the second thing is, when we're talking about organizing, we also need to be very, very clear around like cultural organizing, electoral organizing, organizing with the state, like what type of organizing are we doing? And recognizing if you have a relationship within the state organizing, that is automatically compromising Black and brown liberation. Whether we have good intentions or not, the issue is we're not the people who will make the final decisions. The money will, the power will, the wealth will. So, and also too, we can't feel guilty about this because this is still our work and still our process of engaging and trying to do the best that we can with the resources and the things that we have available to us. And so when we're talking about cultural organizing, I will continue to say, like, we come from, as Black and brown indigenous people, we come from a long history and tradition of organizing and using art, not just as, I like to say, war dances, but also to access whatever we need within that moment. That's the importance of the cipher. That's the importance of ring shout. Ring shout never ended. maroon people have never ended. I come from a maroon community. We're still there. We still exist. That still exists within our bodies, and we still. The problem is, like, before we even got like slavery, like the whole thing about our bodies and the information we carry. Colonizers knew this information before we got off the slave boat when we started dancing, right? So I think we need to be really, and the question becomes like, hey, how do we, with this, as cultural keepers, how do we continue to engage in capitalism, because that is the system, and also create our own systems with integrity and enough to keep us moving, because we know artists are one of the most, we don't have, most people don't have 401k, don't have healthcare, don't have the necessities to live. And this pandemic just spread it out and made it worse for us as artists. So I think when we're talking about organizing and sustainability and these type of things, like, we have the tools as cultural keepers and artists who vision and also have the practice of experimentation, the practice of improvisation, the practice of figuring stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
How many times I can do this? 20 different times. That is a study and a practice that normal organizers do not have. And so when we talk about sustainability, the artist's role is not just performing emotions and pain. The artist's role is specifically in these times up front with the visioning, up front with the study, in the process and the practice.
Yeah, thanks, Brittany. I'm just trying to synthesize what I heard from what you said, which is one of the things is that this idea of this kind of ancestral knowledge that has reappeared in our communities that is central to your practice, right? So marooning, ciphering, improvisation, visioning, all of those are skills that you have honed from your ancestral heritage, basically, and
Yes,
that you
I have
bring
to
to your
shout out,
organizing.
sorry, I have to shout out Michelle Grant Murray in Ancestral Movement Memory, which is a choreographic practice that my mentor created. So a lot of this theory and thoughts around like how I came to organizing was from those choreographic tools.
Thank you. Yeah. But then also the fact that so many artists are organizers, but then we're also simultaneously so we live in such precarious situations, right? So we're not necessarily taken care of. We don't have the kind of protections, material protections that we need to really be sustainable. So the fact that we're negotiating both of those things while trying to do our work, I guess is what I'm hearing from what you're saying. And I'm gonna bookmark for you to talk about abolition and abolitionist values in a second. Alicia or Naomi, so the question was about like your initial like reactions to what's been happening and or your long sustained work. And then my other question was about what values underpin the work that you do.
So my initial reactions was about, you know, simply whether to go out or not, because, you know, many older adults, they don't feel comfortable going outside. That they want to know what's happening. So we actually did some convening sessions by Zoom with some older adults who it was very popular. We had different leaders of the discussion groups talking about the issues, whatever. So we tried to make it possible for them to listen in.
So
and
you basically you met with the folks that you usually serve to
Yes.
see what they needed and where they were.
And to see what they wanted to say and do about specifically the protests, specifically about the actions of George. It was horrible. It was just, we all know how terrible it was.
Thank you for that. Alicia?
Yes. So Brittany, I got shivers up and down my spine listening to you talk for those, you know, truth.
Me too.
Yeah. And I just want to say, going back to something that Alexia said in the introduction, that we've all been trained in these frameworks of white supremacy and capitalism. And one of those lies is that somehow we can think ourselves out of intergenerational trauma and racism, cut off our bodies and just think it out, right? But that's not the case, right? Trauma is stored in the body, habit is stored in the body, and the healing of it happens in the body. And Brittany, I was feeling you because we have the technologies. We have these technologies in our communities. Thinking about my own dance legacy, house dance, what is house dance? What is Vogue? What is turf dancing? These things are healing practices, embodied healing practices. So we have these tools here, and it's not a mistake that arts and physical arts are devalued and undercut to the extent that they are. I do not think that's a mistake. So I was just really feeling you on that. And yeah, as far as adrenaline-based organizing, I'll just briefly share that my first impulse was to like bleach everything. I was like, I'm gonna kill this virus, and I'm gonna, you know, I drove to meet my partner, my wife, who was in Chicago. So I'm driving all night. I'm like, I can do this. I can do anything, right? So that kind of response, go, go, go. And then I got sick, and I had to sit my ass down. I had to lay down for 2 weeks in a small room, right? And so that was one of those interventions, one of those storm medicine interventions of actually, you are vulnerable to this, and you're gonna have to feel. And I do think one of our superpowers as dancers is a practice in increasing capacity to feel.
Yeah, I like that.
In order to heal this stuff, so.
Practicing increasing capacity to feel. Yes, I appreciate that.
Maybe Brittany, you could come and talk to our older adults. Maybe I'm inviting you. I'm inviting you to talk to our older adults.
All right.
Candace?
What happened?
I think Naomi wants to invite you to come and talk to her older adults.
Because here, you're hired, okay?
Thank you, Naomi. So I kind of want to take a brief moment to move, if we don't mind. Let's just, so we'll do a little pass. Exactly. I'm going to do something, pass it to somebody else could pick it up. We could also all move together. But anyway, we're going to move. Here we go. All right. Brittany, I'm passing it to you. We kind of all following along, but okay, go. Yeah, go. Who
next?
You pass it.
Go, Brinda.
Naomi?
Alicia?
Oh, that was a nice ending. Thanks, guys. Thanks, folks.
Can I stand up?
Yeah, do it. Yeah, exactly. Let's stand up. Do what you got to do. Move, shake your head. Drink some water, all of these things. So we got a few comments from the Facebook world. Let's see. I'll read a few. Yes, Maria says, and we need the adrenaline, not just only adrenaline. It has its place, but it shouldn't be the only motivator. Mara Donahue replies, motivator is not a sustainable practice for the long road of the work. Realizing I am far away from my nervous system, stabilizing practices, including dancing it out. Yep. Yes, compromised by the state, the wealth, and the systems that will take any efforts for organizing. Education systems deeply compromise spaces for organizing. Michelle Fletcher, I've been thinking about animal shaking response, literally shaking as recovery from fight or flight nervous response. Yeah, she goes into a whole, thinking about decolonizing the body and building stamina, remembering my own internal ability to process with my body. Yeah, so that's like, again, our practice of keeping our physical selves, our spiritual selves, our emotional selves present in a lot of the work that we do. So I want to switch, well, not switch, I want to lead us into talking about the communities that hold us accountable, the communities, how are you held accountable to the communities that you work in, and maybe what has your community taught you right now in this moment and with the work that you're doing? Yes. So 2 things. How does your community hold you accountable? Or how do you hold yourself accountable to your communities, either way? And 2, what has your community taught you in this moment?
I hold myself accountable by deep listening to what they need and what they're saying to me. And my reaction has been just to slow down. It's not my temperament. I'm to go very fast, but it's just to slow down.
Yeah. Does that look a certain way for you? How are you in communication with them? Is it through the classes that you hold? Is
Through
it
the classes, I just slow
conversations?
down, and through the rehearsals, we've been setting these dances to just kind of take time to just explain things, because people need more time. They tell me they need more time, and I'm listening. And I just take more time. Whether it's explaining how to work some kind of technology or how to move in the moment.
Yeah, it seems like that's a recurring theme, right? For a lot of this work is that we have been moving too fast.
Yeah,
so
we have really. There's something we have to all slow down. It's a time, but it's a true thing. It's a real thing. Okay.
Yeah, thank you for that. Other folks? So how is your community holding you accountable? What has your community taught you?
You know, accountability is hard. Not gonna curse. And and if we don't, you know, like if we're not sitting at the table to define what accountability means like as a community, I don't know how they're holding me accountable. Based off of what values, based off of you know, like on a real sense. But I've been rocking with 3-4 people who we have had these conversations, and it's been hard. But it's also been great, you know, like really, really great in the process. So, you know, daily check-ins, or like just naming if I can't do this, or someone else pick up that, or just, you know, just paying attention to the person that I'm in relationship with, or have some type of, like, that's my comrade, has been helpful to be like, yo, I feel like, are you okay? Or, you know, like, what's up? Or, you know, I felt some type of way when you did that, or, you know, and then also having other folks be like, okay, I'm gonna sit and listen to you vent, but after this venting, then what? You know? So, yeah, those are the people, you know, other people that I have my own process of accountability around. Like I said earlier, I have 15 nieces and nephews. That's a different type of community because I'm their auntie, right? So I don't know. That's what I got.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That same kind of deep listening that Naomi was mentioning, right? So it's like being attuned to what the folks around you are trying to say to you. And then also like with your nieces and nephews, like you're in a leadership position, but I'm sure they're also like, you do anything sideways, they'd be like, Auntie, what? So yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think I'm gonna probe you a little bit more, Brittany, if that's okay. In terms of, and back to this like question of abolition and abolitionist thinking, which is and I'll let you talk more about it, but I feel that us getting to abolition is a thing that people are taking more seriously right now, but it's also something that's hard to contend with, right? Because if you believe in abolition, you have to tear down a lot of the systems that we participate in, right? You have to tear down the police, you got to tear down jails, you got to tear down hierarchy. There's a lot of things that you have to do away with in order to rock with that kind of that way of organizing, that way of looking at the world. So do you want to talk a little bit about how you are working in those spaces or organizing around those practices?
Yeah, so basically, policing cages are a new phenomena. It's not something that has always ruled us or ways. We've always had systems of safety. We always had systems of providing for each other and checking in with each other in a real way, right? And so when you look at the history of policing, you look at the history of cages, we also have to study the history of oppression and patriarchy and white supremacy and slavery and all these other world domination, global domination, because it's not just the United States where it is impacted by white supremacy and wealth and capitalism. So I think like for us to have this conversation about abolition is visioning a world that already existed. People say a world that has never existed. Yes, it existed before, especially during like specifically in the Reconstruction era. That's one, but also too around like policing its roots in at slave catchers. So that was for a specific group of people. You get what I mean? So we as Black and Indigenous people and people on the end of these systems, working class, poor people, we have always created that. And I think like we've seen all these many disruptions around war on drugs, all these other things that come into play, AIDS epidemic, HIV epidemic, all these things come into play that disrupt our communities, devastate our communities. And it makes me think about what Alicia was talking about earlier about the storm and the healing process around Hurricane Maria. So those type of things come in and not necessarily resources for us to recover, not necessarily resources for us to survive. And so like we can go into the like out of personally, don't think anyone should be caged, and we'll not get into a conversation about violence and nonviolence because we live in rape culture, and incarceration and policing creates more and more rape culture and violence within Black and brown poor people community. So if we want to have that conversation, these jails, I mean, you know, the city tried to build 4 new jails without a guarantee to close records. The city continues to invest billions and billions of dollars into polices. But the reality is it is a public-private entity that continues to police working class poor people. When you look at the police foundation, which is actually run by the largest corporations in the world. So these are just conversations around we have to contend as poor people, as working class people, of how we want to take care of each other and not rely upon a state when we have everything we need to create it. We just need to figure out the logistics, sustainability, and experimenting in. I'm making it sound like it's like, you know, oh, it's easy. It's not. It's hard as stuff. But it's a process that I think that we can start, and we've already been doing this.
Yeah, so you're basically alluding to the fact that the systems these systems of accountability that don't rely on these larger oppressive violent systems have existed within our communities. They're not brand new. We have something to build on, is what you're saying.
Yes, okay. And also on top of that, when you look at the rates of incarceration, look at the rates of policing, incarceration and policing, all this is supposed to keep us safe. It's supposed to allow people to have redemption, but it actually, when someone's incarcerated, it makes them more traumatized. They go through so much other things, and then after incarceration, they throw them back into our communities with no resources, which also, and our communities already don't have resources in there to support people coming out. So it becomes these whole different type of cycles. And revolving doors, and this has been something that has happened generationally. So the same thing with Maria, because I'm from Miami, so Hurricane Irma, before Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans and hit Miami and ain't nobody come save us. So we had to do some of that work on our own. But the reality is devastation, if it's not addressed in a timely fashion, the devastation never really goes away, just like the trauma.
Yeah, thank you for that. I just want to bring us back to how are you holding yourself accountable to your community? How is your community holding you accountable? And or what is your community teaching you in this moment? So Alicia or Brinda or, well, Naomi already went, so Alicia or Brinda.
I love this question. A lot of the way accountability looks for me is kind of offline. I be on the phone with people a lot. That's a big piece of it. Acre for sure. In my home as well. So that kind of conversation. And in thinking about this question of speed up or slow down, Adrienne Marie Brown is coming to mind, and the idea of moving at the speed of trust. And I'd say also moving at the speed of grounded action. So it's not, it is a time to act. This is the time to act. But just like, what is that, I guess, modulation around that? Yeah, and then so what have I learned from my community? I mean, this conversation around where are we moving from, for sure. Also boldness. So, days after George Floyd was murdered, I was on the phone with my tío who's in Minneapolis, and I had just heard like, okay, so Southside Minneapolis is on fire. Okay, so what do y'all need? So I called him and I was like, okay, is the demand like the police should work with the Black Visions Collective or like he was like, no, honey, like abolish. I was like, oh, wait, that's possible right now? Oh, shit, right? So that kind of boldness. I want to shout out Nana Shannara as well. So, these different moves that people are making, she wrote this open letter and I was like, oh, okay. We're just telling the truth to like white-led elite dance organizations. Oh, okay, got you. Let me get on board. I'm gonna shout out Maria, who's watching right now, my wife and love. She had a situation where a presenter was acting up. She was like, all right, we're out. Like, we'll present ourselves. Mara, who's watching right now, who's taking on racism in elite educational institutions. So I think that sort of ability to like not go for what's reasonable, right? Because that's also storm medicine, I think, is it kind of cuts through the givens. And prison abolition feels like one of those things that, people will say is impossible or not reasonable, but that's what I'm learning right now in this moment from my community is go for what the vision really is, not just what feels doable inside this box.
Yeah. So in your case, your community is helping you to think bigger or to be bolder.
To be bold, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Brinda.
Yeah, I love that. I'm very, sorry, I got kicked off earlier, so now I'm back. I'm on a new device though, so.
We got you, you look great.
All right, okay. Accountability is huge right now, if I'm gonna be honest. I mean, I wrote my third public apology for something last night. Like I'm deep in the flame right now, of holding myself accountable and, see, like we're not a monolith, right? Like once you find out that all of our parents came here after 1965, that Black activists actually fought for the Immigration Act, but then we all came here for literally to uphold white supremacy. Like we came here to uphold the structures that we are now trying to dismantle. And so if we are separate as a South Asian community, if we're all separate and we're mad at each other, then it slows down the work. And so I'm negotiating how quiet to be and how to remain bold, because my nature is to be bold and my nature is to make the move and to fall on my face and get up and keep going. That's my nature, and I'm usually not embarrassed, but when your own community calls you out on stuff, it hits different, and so we're trying to still move powerfully forward, understanding that we are not a monolith and different things are important to us, you know? And so how can I talk to the privileged cast of descendants of South Asia, you know, who will listen to me? How do I walk into that space and be like, hey guys, there's this whole generation you didn't teach caste to, you know, and we're sitting here and we're having these discussions in POC circles without really settling into what our last name carries or what our ancestors carry for us, right? So you're sitting here and you're trying to reckon with that publicly while leading people. And so it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And like Brittany said, it's scary. And like Alicia said, it's like, it's in that crossroads of everything's coming at you and you have to remain bold. You have to remain clear on the mission. And the mission is to get the work done. And so, you know, it's a lot of reckoning that's happening. And I think that my community holds me accountable. At the same time, my community is defined by my definition of community, you know? And so like, that's also part of it, because I do not get down with all South Asian folks. Like I don't, you know, and trying to figure out what that is while still speaking to them and while still being in solidarity and still creating more impactful work in the current moment with the community of my building, of my choice, you know? So it's a lot of identity questions at this time. And, but more than that, it's about like the momentum of staying effective, you know, like I feel that this is not the time to be ineffective. And so, you know, it's that push. And I do think that being an artist, all of us can attest to that inclination inside that just drives us to keep coming back, because you have to keep coming back, you know? You have to keep your eye on that work and that honesty. And so, and that transparency. So yeah.
So I think I'm going to draw one of the things that you're, I guess like a question back to us is basically like, who exactly is your community? And that also informs the kind of organizing work or change making work that you are setting about to do, and that work is not the same in every single space within even the like smaller defined community that you're serving or working with or identify with.
And I just want to add that like whiteness and white supremacy has put us all in this huge umbrella that's so not the point. Right? Like there's this huge umbrella where we're being kind of like manipulated into thinking that we're all one, right? But there is so much that's so untrue. And so we're sitting here and we're trying to decolonize within our small communities, within our subsets, then within the larger community, then as a country, and then as a people. And then, you know, trying to do it in a way that doesn't dehumanize people, you know? And so, I think, yeah, I just want to leave it at that. Yeah.
Thanks, Brinda. Yeah, I think it's it's like you need different things at different times. It's like solidarity is definitely needed between brown and black folks, right? But it's also the idea that you have to, within that solidarity, understand that everyone is coming from a different entry point and everyone has different work to do within their own subset, their own lanes, their own inner circles, that has to dismantle the kind of anti-blackness, the kind of white supremacy, the kind of anti-hierarchy that needs to happen. So it's about being a part of larger movements, but also doing the individual work that you have to do as well. So with that, I'm going to transition us towards ending, right? And so I want to recap a bit, like today's session was supposed to be about dancing community. And, you know, in a way, I've kind of defined that broadly, right? You folks do a lot of different types of work, your work as an artist, your work in organizing with other people, your work in leading movement for people and getting people to move and remember that, to you're organizing with larger movements, right? Police abolition, you're organizing in the South Asian community or in the commercial dance community. So I just want to say that we're all choosing this dancing community theme broadly. But of course, dance is always, to some extent, in community, right? It's always in relation to other people. Just to kind of bring us back to where we started. But to close, I'm wondering if we could come back to the individual again and just maybe go around and say, one, what do you need, or what could we be doing to support the work that you're doing? And two, how are you ensuring your own wellness through all of the work that you're doing? Naomi, you want to go?
First of all, I want to say thank you to everyone who on the panel. Everyone was great. I want to be sure I'm in touch with you. I want sure that I can get in touch with you. And Dance NYC has been very supportive in reaching out to all of us to hear our voices. I appreciate that you listened.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about what, how can we help the work that you're doing, or how are you sustaining yourself, making sure that you're well enough to do the work that you're doing with
I'm well
with
enough. I'm well enough. It's okay. That's
all right. Naomi is ready.
Yeah.
Keep doing the work. Thank you, Naomi.
Thank you. It's like, I appreciate that you're here and that you're in advocates of dance and dance education. Totally. Dance NYC. Bravo.
Thank you. Other folks?
But really, I want to hear everyone else. I want to hear from everyone else. I'll contact you.
I'm happy to go. So Woodshed Dance, right now, we're putting on a summer intensive for Black people. We understand that Black people have been killed at the hands of the state. And so we're hosting this summer intensive with all Black artists who have been hit by COVID really hard and may need additional cash, and also 50 plus Black people from across the globe to be in community with each other. And we're charging $100 for one scholarship, but like a lot of this is funded out of our pockets. Like we can't be talking about redistributing wealth when like I'm in the practice of also doing it for myself as a Black woman, to support others. So a lot of this money is coming through fundraising, scholarships. So you can donate. You can find us online, the Woodshed Online Dance platform, to donate and figure out more information about that. And then I think another thing that like I just want to throw out there that I didn't say, like decolonization and abolition goes hand in hand. There's concepts around equal equity in a capitalist system. Decolonization and abolition has to be the goal. And then what I'm doing what was your second question, Candace? Make it real short.
What are you doing for yourself?
Yeah, what I'm doing for myself is actually I'm planting a lot, and I'm sitting on my fire escape and detoxing from the world, just looking at the sky. Yeah.
I love that. Thanks, Brittany. Brinda, go.
I can go. I've been building contracts with people. like actually, like very much so, hey Ma, this is how we're gonna talk about race. And I'll see you at 8:00 and we'll cook together. Like literally just like saying what I'm gonna do with people and then go and do it, and setting that up and being very clear in my intentions. My partner and I have been setting that up as well, because we're in an interracial relationship. So we have a lot of accountability to each other and our communities while doing this work. And so it's been really nice to be clear about what it is that I'm gonna do in terms of communication with people and relationships. In terms of what I need y'all to tune in to Wise Fruit's work. We will be launching Monday with Sydney Mosley what I'm calling the Wise Fruit Offerings, which is text-based work online, virtual, where the Black artist will present some text, and then we'll have collaborating dancers kind of move to that text as a space of catharsis and sharing. And so I would love for people to tune into that and to follow Wise Fruit NYC for the work that we are doing. And in terms of what am I doing for myself, I'm eating really good food. I'm cooking. I am crying a lot, and I'm sleeping a lot. And I'm focusing on clarity so that I can show up better.
Nice. Thanks, Brinda. Alicia, take us home.
Y'all got me breathing deeper. Thank you. So, I mean, honestly, I need to figure out how to fund the work I'm doing. That's what I need. I need to figure out this money. Yeah, so the storm medicine work right now is a collaboration between, it's all people of color. It's turning out to be mostly queer people of color. And I just want to echo and appreciate what you said, Candace, about we all have work and it's all different work, and figuring that out. So yeah, we're definitely not a monolith, and by no means do I co-sign everything that, you know, light-skinned Latinos do. And still, we are part of the same, I'm implicated. There's information there for me. So, you know, George Zimmerman was Latino. It'd be easier for me to say he, you know, oh, we don't claim him. He was a Latino dude, light-skinned Latino dude. So was Sean Monterosa, who was killed by police in Oakland a couple weeks ago. So we have both of the, you know, all of this to contend with. Mm-hmm. I have all of this to contend with. And so the storm medicine piece really is the lab to do embodied work around that with other queer folks of color outside in the streets, and make that an interactive piece. So, and you know, so money is to be honest, the main challenge with that. Same thing with the work with the young folks. So I'm trying to figure out how to continue that and switch it to a youth company model. And the school that I'm working with, mind-blowingly, is trying to cut dance at this moment. You know, so that's kind of the piece I'm in, is like, is this about, you know, what are the funding sources for this kind of work? How do I define what this work is? Because it's so many things. Yeah, so that's where I'm at with that. And then what am I doing to stay well? I feel you on the fire escape, Brittany. I'll be out there. I have some tomatoes and basil and things growing out there that I love spending time with. Yeah, connecting with loved ones, drinking so much water, let myself eat ice cream and watch Netflix sometimes. Continuing to move. That one is essential.
Thank you. Where can we just do really quick? We're over time, but this is like the last thing. Just say orally where people can find you. You know, like if you got a website or something, because I think of some people are asking in the comments where to donate or find you later. So, Alicia, you want to go first, and then we'll just go quickly around.
At this moment, Instagram's the best place. It's Skeleton Dance 14.
Nice. Brittany?
Hey, so as of right now, Instagram is the best place. Miss Britt, MSBRITT, think _305, you can find me. And then at...
You're muted, Brittany.
Oh, I muted myself again. Woodshed Dance Online. And if you're a black person wanting to organize around embodied art traditions, at Get This War Dance.
Nice. Thank you. Naomi, tell us where to find you.
You can find me and our company at dvpnyc.org. And also I want you to watch the Revival series, revival4.com. It's wonderful. This is a whole production that was made by older adults and older artists. It's wonderful. Revival.
Thank you, Naomi. Brinda?
Yeah, you can find Wise Fruit. The best place is also Instagram. It's Wise Fruit NYC, and also wisefruitnyc.com. It's no secret that I also work for Dance NYC, so I'm around and I'm with Candace every day. So you guys can always reach out to me through Dance NYC as well.
Thank you. So I want to thank everybody for being here and for sharing about your work and your practices and the communities that you reach. I'm going to transition into closing us off and giving us information about next week's panel. So we'll be back here next Tuesday with our conversation is around cultural workers behind the veil. So we'll be talking with arts administrators and agents, arts workers, producers about what they've been experiencing. So we'll be talking with Clarissa Soto-Joseph, who's the Associate Director at Pentacle, with Kaisha Johnson, the Founding Director of Women of Color in the Arts, Mariah Weathers, an independent creative producer and curator, and Rebecca Farrell, Director of Programs at Dance USA. And of course, if you tuned in, please fill out the post-event survey that we have. That's in the comments right now. We'll also share any resources, so maybe like the links that they've just mentioned in the Facebook event page, and as well that it will be on the webpage on our website. So anything that we've shouted out today, we'll make sure to put in both of those places. Also want to say that Alicia wants you to know that you can find more about Acre, Artists Co-Creating Real Equity, on Facebook at Acre PSAB is their name on Facebook. And in closing, to thank our friends at LC Interpreting and Viscardi Center for the accessibility services that they provided for us today. And of course, my team here at Dance NYC for organizing with us for yet another week to bring this conversation and to be in conversation with all of you folks. So thank you to my audience, to all of our dance folks and other people who tuned in for today's conversation. It's really wonderful to be able to be a part of these conversations with you. So thanks again and take care. Hopefully we see you next week. Bye, everyone. Mm.